So, my name is Lisa. I go by Lisa Mani Ironcloud on Facebook. Mani means water in Lakota. My maiden name is Water, and I'm from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. My dad is from Pine Ridge. His name is Albert Water Sr., and my mom is Agnes Red Elk, and she's from Manderson, Rocky Ford area on the Pine Ridge Reservation. I am a mother of four. My husband is Arlo, and we've been doing this type of work with our traditional foods since 2016, and that's when it really kicked off. What started it was that I created the sewing circle back in 2012, at the end of 2012, because I wanted to learn how to sew. And I figured if I get a group of ladies together to sew, I might learn something. So, and I did, I really did. Not just about sewing, but also about our foods. Because when we would gather, we would eat. And sometimes it got to the point where we just gathered and ate and we didn't even sew anything. So it was just being together, you know. And we were talking about healthier food choices because, you know, the types of food that we took whenever we went to go sew were like pastries, you know, really heavy foods. And a conversation came up about how we used to prepare our foods. And then it kind of sparked my interest. And, you know, I didn't grow up being taught this, although it was around me. I was aware of it, but I didn't know why they dried foods. My grandma, I remember going into her house. She didn't have electricity until I was probably a teenager, and she dried a lot of her foods. So as soon as you walked into her kitchen, there were, and I call them sage, which is like a walking stick. The sticks that she had hanging from her ceiling were like walking sticks. And she would have her meat hanging up all over in her kitchen. And she would dry corn. And we grew up on sweet corn. So, but I've also learned that, you know, there was also field corn. So it was field corn, then sweet corn. And sweet corn kind of stuck because it was available around in our area. So that's what we grew up as far as corn, you know. So alongside with like gathering like buffalo berries or choke cherries, things like that, that's what I was exposed to. So after these conversations with the ladies at the Lakota Sewing Circle, I wanted to start trying to dry these types of foods. And it was a lot of trial and error. For instance, some of the foods that we do prepare, there isn't a recipe. Some of the times it's just going off of a person's memory of how they would eat something. They would remember what it looked like, what it tasted like. And we would just go off of that. And it just kind of allowed us to be creative when it came to drying foods. So preparing foods too, not just drying. But so what I wanted to talk to you guys today about was the traditional types of foods that we prepare, that we dry. And I think today we were supposed to do squash, but I have more than squash. I have a lot more than squash. So I'm gonna kind of start off with the squash, how we dry that, and then I'll kind of go into the other types of foods that we dry and we prepare, since it was titled traditional foods. So we've been doing a lot of the spiral cut drying, and I remember seeing that a lot at camp up in Standing Rock back in 2016 also, where somebody had cut yellow crookneck squash, and it was cut, I mean, just so beautifully, and it was hanging to dry you know, in the spiral cut, and it just really amazed me. And I really try to research as much as possible about why they would do stuff like that, you know, why they would spiral cut it. But spiral cutting, from my own experience, just allows you to be able to utilize the whole squash. So we've kind of stuck with that, which also, you know, really piqued interest in a lot of people, not just Lakotas, but, you know, our friends from other tribes. And we were given like shared articles about like mats or dry squash braiding like that. And so it's pretty interesting to see all of this come back up because of, you know, being able to do it and show people, okay, this is how it's done. And I think that right there, because people had that visual, it really sparked that interest and allowed other people to research how they used to do things. So let's get started. Do I have any questions right now? I don't want to.
Not yet. I just wondered what you had besides the squash, if you have any fruit or anything.
Yeah, so we have, alongside the squash, I'll be talking about the plums. So, you know, the wild plums that grow around in our area, the buffalo berries. So I'll be talking about how you would, you know, prepare these for drying. So, and choke cherries, which everybody knows. We'll talk about those too. So it's not just squash or meats, it's also mushrooms. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with puffballs, tumbling puffballs, but they're the white mushroom that grow on the ground. And I guess it really varies from, you know, my own experience when you can find them. You just kind of have to keep a lookout for them, because I found some when you shouldn't have expected to see them. So it's pretty interesting. But to be able to harvest those puffballs and then dry them, you know, cut them really thin and then set them out into the sun. My sister, Linda Blackout, she actually taught me how to do this. And whenever you dry these, the taste is similar to, I would say, what was it? What did it was like, not cashews, like it has a nutty flavor to it. So they're really delicious, and you can just snack on these as you go also. So, and the puffball, I mean, it serves a lot of purposes for us as Lakota. So you can get them whenever they're still white, and they'll have to be white all the way through, no blemishes. Then you can eat those, but whenever they dry out, it's also another type of medicine for us. So it's not just squash. Another mushroom that we have here is from the box elder maple. So they call these chanakba, which is like tree ears. So we were able to figure out just how to dry these. So whenever we want to use these, like in soups or whatever, we'll just rehydrate them. And then I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this type of mushroom. I can't remember the name exactly. I just know them as chanakba. But they grow in bunches like this. So they'll be all pieced together, just like that. So they kind of look like shelves or something whenever they dry. I mean, whenever they're on the tree. And it has to be the box elder. It can't be from any other tree, otherwise you'll get sick. I haven't tested that. I don't really care to. So whenever they say harvest it from the box elder, I harvest it from the box elder. So, but that's what that is. These are the mushrooms that grow off of the tree. So, and how we dry a lot of our foods is by this screen. And this screen is really old. All it is just an old window screen. A lot of times I'll just place it like this. In my kitchen, we have boards that go across the cupboards. So this will lay on top of the boards like that. And if I'm going to be drying seeds or you know, the patties, then I would just throw them up here and forget about them because it's a screen, there's gonna be airflow. So it dries all the way around. So that's what I use that for. What I'd like to do now is kind of talk about the spiral cut. The, the zucchini is one of my favorite ones to cut because the skin is really soft. It's not like the Hubbard. So I have a blue Hubbard here, which was gifted to me. I have a red Hubbard over here on this side of the table. And I also have a green Hubbard right behind us that is new to me. Well, the red and the green Hubbard squash are new to me. I didn't know that they existed until I was able to meet a farmer or a guy who grows tons of squash. And he was able to kind of give me the 411 on the different types of squash. So I have those varieties of Hubbard squash. And what I found was really interesting is that I guess a person can tell, especially if they know their squash, which region you're from in South Dakota, which is really interesting. Because whenever I had asked for blue Hubbard, he said, okay, so you're not from the Lower Brule area. And I said, what does that mean? He said they use a lot of the green Hubbard, not the blue. And I thought that was pretty interesting because, I mean, I grew to know that, you know, it was blue Hubbard. Blue Hubbard is what you wanted. So whenever you talk to, you know, people who grew up on blue Hubbard, man, they really treasure blue Hubbard. And I've never heard anything about green Hubbard or red Hubbard before this year. So this zucchini, I don't really do anything with it. I don't cut off the ends or anything. I try not to. If it does happen that I do chop off the ends just by accident because it didn't make the cut with my spiral cut, I'll take a thread just like this and my needle and then just thread the pieces that I have left over from the spiral cut. So if I were to do a spiral cut on the Hubbard squash today, more than likely, because it's really crispy, right after you take the skin off, you can feel it. It's like really, really crispy. It's not pliable. So whenever I do the blue Hubbard squash and I dry it, I will take off the skin first. I'll remove the hide and then let it sit for a day or two to where it becomes really soft and pliable, and I don't have to worry about it breaking on me. So, but if it does, that's fine too, because I can still string them up like this. And I try to make sure that there's enough space in there. Whenever I walk by, I'll move it around like that. So just to ensure that there's no mold or anything on this. And this has been hanging for 3 days now and is completely dry. So whenever I'm done drying my squash, I am fortunate enough to have relatives that live in New Mexico. So they provide me with their old bluebird flower bags like this. So this is how I would store a lot of my foods after I dry them. Just like this bag right here. This is gonna stay in you can keep them in a cool, dark place, or a lot of times I'll hang it on the wall where there isn't much sunlight or anything. See, this is one of the spiral cuts that I've done. It's just like similar to this. So this one, I think this is maybe about 4 months old, maybe less, something like that. It's really hard to say how old it is because whenever we do a lot of the squash, a lot of times somebody will say, hey, do you have dry squash? And I do. I try to keep it on hand just for purposes like that. You know, if a grandma wanted to make some soup or make something with the dried squash, then I have it on hand. So, but I keep everything, all my squash in a bag just like this. I would close it up and hang it on the wall until I needed it. It's not in direct sunlight. There's a lot of airflow that goes through my bag. There's no moisture, which you kind of have to be careful of too. And it stays pretty well in my bag. The thing is that I'm not exactly sure the shelf life because I share a lot. So it's always, you know, drying more and replenishing what I give away or what I've used in my recipes. So let's do a quick demonstration on the zucchini. Is the lighting still okay? Okay. So what I usually do when I start with my zucchini, like I said, I don't cut off the ends, but I mean, they might fall off as I'm cutting it. And that's fine too, because I'll still hang those up, and I try to use as much as I can, except for this guy right here. I really don't use him, but I keep him just because he looks cool. So when he's dried. So what I'll do is I'll pick an end. I can either start down here on the bottom or up here on the top. And what I'm doing is I'm going to create a path using my knife. And the type of knife I'm using is just a really sharp knife. It could be any type of knife. Just from my own experience, it's whatever you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with using a flaying knife and you know that you're not going to poke yourself when you're doing stuff like that, I mean, you're not really flaying, but if it works for you, then it works for you. So I think when it came to things like this, we kind of had to just use what we had. So you make the best of it with what you have. So what I'm going to do is start off with making a path. And I did a demonstration with Hubbard a few weekends back about squash. And when we were talking about this, in my head, I could visualize me walking down a mountain. So I was, trying to get the best description as possible without, people being here and actually seeing it, because I'm all for hands-on learning. But I figured if I create a visual, maybe that would stick and give you a better idea of what I'm doing. So what I imagine is I'm going to start here and I want to come down here. So for me, I imagine it being a mountain. So I'm not going to just walk straight down. I'm going to actually take my time. I'm going to take the scenic route and I'm going to go all the way down the mountain, just like that. So what I want to do is just create my path, because I'm not going to commit to fully cutting through or making the larger cuts of the squash, just in case I make some of the cuts too wide. So what I'll do is I'll just take my knife and just go around my squash just like this to create a path. And what I'm going to do after I get done with my path is go back through and cut a little bit deeper. And whenever you're just now learning how to do this, I really encourage you to take your time. Take your time. There's no rush at all. So just imagine yourself sauntering down the mountain. You're taking in the sights. You're kind of hoping that you'll see a mountain goat or something. Man, those mountain goats get huge, huh? Holy smokes.
Tell them about this one. It's on Bighorns.
Oh yeah, there was a mountain goat just standing on all fours. I mean, just on all fours. It probably was maybe a little over 5.
I would say 6 feet tall.
About 6 feet. Yeah, it was really tall. So anyway, that's the kind of mountain goat you want to see while you're coming down this mountain. You don't want to rush it, because you want to see what's on this mountain before you get off the mountain. So we're just gonna go around the zucchini just like that. You still okay seeing me? Am I still okay? Okay. All right. So I just turn my zucchini as I go, just taking my time, kind of being aware of, you know, how thick my slices are. Even if my slices were a little too thick, I can let it rest after I get done cutting it to where it softens a little bit more. And I can go back through my thicker slices and then slice in between to create two cuts of the squash. So there are no mistakes. So we're almost there, halfway. Take your time. A lot of times you just have to, you know, imagine something to entertain yourself while you're doing this, because it is a process and you don't want to rush it, especially when it comes to food, because, you know, you're going to be feeding people with that food. So you don't want to go in it, you know, like, oh, I got to get this done, see me done right away, you know, getting anxious or frustrated with yourself, because I believe that really affects the taste of your foods and how your food's going to turn out. So, like I said, we're almost there. And all I'm doing is just turning my zucchini, keeping and being mindful about the spaces in between my cuts. And like I said, that's okay. If you have thicker cuts, you can let it sit. It's not going to mold like right away if you let it sit there. So you're fine. You're okay. The longest I've let a Hubbard. Yeah.
Somebody asked, how deep are you cutting it? And they love your story.
Thank you. I'm not cutting it very deep. Probably maybe about an eighth of an inch. So I'm not cutting it all the way through the center. I'm just creating this path, and I'm not sure if you can see it. I'm trying to get the sun to show the cuts, but all I'm doing is creating a path, so you can't separate it at all. And this is just going to be my guide. So when I get to the bottom, I'm gonna go back to the top and cut a little deeper. And whenever you get towards the end, start thinking about how you're gonna save your seeds. If you're gonna save them, it's a great thing if you do save them. I will usually put the seeds in a bowl and then wash them under water using my hands to get most of that meat off of it, the guts. And then I would slap it on the screen. Like I said, that stays up on top of the sticks in my kitchen, and just let it dry. And I will use envelopes to keep my seeds in. And I would keep those in a dark, cool place too. So I was asked a question about saving seeds. What if there was mold on my seeds, you know? And I'm not an expert. I mean, I just know what I've experienced when it comes to this and saving seeds. I did have a mold on a few of my seeds. I wiped it off. And after it was dried, it was a little bit mold because they were on top of each other. I didn't notice that. And I just wiped off the mold and then put it back in the envelope, put it in an envelope with the other seeds. And then I planted it and it still grew. So as far as I know, when it comes to mold on your seeds, it should be okay. So we're nearing the bottom of this. We're looking for water because we're thirsty. We're kicking ourselves in the butt because our phone battery is only at 2%. We couldn't take any pictures of anything. And we made it. We're down here. See? So what we're going to do now is go back to the top to where we started, which I started right here. And I'm going to insert my knife just a little bit. probably about 1/2 inch maybe. I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm only going to aim to go to the center of the squash, just like that. And I'm following my path. And I charged my phone this time so I could take a picture of that huge mountain goat on my way back down again. You see how far my knife is now. So what I'm trying to do is guesstimate how far I need to hook my knife into the squash to get to the center of it. And I'm going to come around, just following my path, just like that. And if you do this enough times, you don't need to create your path. You can just cut. But I really feel like that is after, you know, just some experience of cutting your squash. This is just a great way to learn how to do it if you've never done it before. And everybody does it their own way, which is awesome. It's always great to have variety when it comes to anything. Plus, it allows you to become really creative too. Another thing I wanted to talk about also was, you know, whenever you're picking up anything, a new skill or whatever, you want to be able to be gentle with yourself. So you want to be able to tell yourself repeatedly, I'm learning. I'm just not learning. Because from my own experience when working with butchering or, you know, preparing our foods like this, there's always that, I'm doing this wrong, you know, and it kind of prevents you from doing a lot of things because of that. You're afraid you're going to do something wrong. Well, you can't do anything wrong with this. So if you don't get your cuts, you know, the way you want it, then keep practicing. You can always take the pieces that don't make the cut and string it up just like that. So nothing will go to waste. Okay, so we're almost there. I just love doing zucchini because of how soft it is. Okay, we're almost there. I have a lot on my mind. So like while I'm cutting this, I have a buffalo hide in the backyard that I have to scrape today. So I'm thinking about that. Because we're going to be doing a brain tan on that one. And if you're single, this will be something to woo that person that you have your eye on. Look what I can do, and bust out your zucchini. Show off your skills. And if she's the one or he's the one, he'll fall in love with you. She'll fall in love with you.
And if they don't care about that stuff, they're not the one.
They're not the one. Okay, we're almost there. It's really good to include humor whenever you're doing anything like that, like this. We always try to create some sort of obstacle or something whenever we're learning too, to help us remember, because we were talking about like triggers, you know, because food has been a really huge trigger for our elders. And whenever you prepare foods that they remember eating when they were kids, it really allows them to go back. And a lot of times too, if you notice like their body language, they get happier and they get excited like they're children again, because it reminds them of mom or dad or their grandma, grandpa, you know, uncle, auntie, whoever it was that might have passed on already. but their connection with them was food, how they would prepare deer meat or how they would prepare squash, you know, things like that. So this is it. So what you want to do is kind of go through and you're going to cut. If it doesn't cut, if you don't cut it all the way through, it's not going to open up. And you want it to open up because if you don't, it stays, I don't know what that word is, but if it stays like this and there's not enough airflow, it's going to just get moldy. So you want to be able to make it so that it can open. And if your zucchini is still a little stiff after you've cut it, after you made the spiral cut, let it sit out on your counter for a day. And then you'll notice the difference in the way it looks. It will start to become like this. It will start to shrink just like that. And this is the zucchini my daughter did. So as you can see, she left some seeds in there. We've been getting her into trying to do videos too, so she can, you know, do them for kids.
It's just cute. Yesterday or a couple days ago, when I went to work, all of a sudden my Lisa sent me a video, and she said, "Look what your daughter uploaded." And I have a YouTube channel. I don't use it very much, but my daughter had uploaded a YouTube video of our cat. We didn't even know she could do that.
Yeah. So it was like she was talking for the cat. So, but that's what she learned how to do just from doing the videos and stuff. So this is how you spiral cut. This is how you would spiral cut the zucchini, just like that. And what we do is we'll place it on our stick inside of the kitchen. So you can get a dowel, you can get whatever you want, and then start from one end and just shove it through the middle like this. And your ends are gonna probably stick out like this, like that. But that's how you want it to dry. And you wanna pay attention to your squash. You want to be able to rotate it when you need to as it's drying. Depending on sunlight, airflow, my squash in my kitchen will dry anywhere between 4 to 6 days. 4 to 6 days, not 46 days. Oh, shoot. So.
Should we show them the drying rack?
Yeah, you can show them the drying rack.
Okay. So this is our drying rack. We basically just, we don't have a whole lot of kitchen space, and we're renting, we don't own. So we're real careful about what we put on the walls. And so what we did was just kind of rigged this little board thing up to right there, and then laid some boards across. And as you can see all along and this is the most traditional meat we've ever dried. So
I wanted to share something too, because I was talking about my daughter and how my daughter, you know, has been helping me. And I don't force my children to learn how to do this. What I try to do is do it in front of them so that it sparks enough interest for them to want to do it. Because I feel like if I force them to do it, there's gonna be a lot of resentment. They're not gonna wanna learn. So we've been wanting to do acorn flower for a while. And it wasn't until this year when my daughter said, just do it. So I did it. You know, we went out there, we harvested acorns, and I believe we have the bur oak.
somebody asked real quick, when you remove the seed from the spiral, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's been two questions.
Oh, okay.
When do you remove the seed from the spiral zucchini?
Oh, okay, so I forgot about that. I just kind of jumped to this. So you want to do the seeds now. So after you cut it, after you cut your zucchini is whenever you want to reach in there and start grabbing out your seeds.
Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So you want to collect the seeds now. So what I usually do is I'll collect all the seeds before I dry it. Put them in the bowl while I'm taking them out. Oops. Put them in the bowl while I'm taking them out, just to clean away a lot of this meat, the guts and stuff. That's whenever I'll do that. So after I get done removing all the seeds and cleaning them, I will take a towel after I put them in water and rinsed them off, and they came out, you know, fairly clean from the guts. And then I would put them in a towel, dry them off just like that. And then this would be on the boards on my kitchen cupboards, and just let them sit like this. Put them up there, spread them out, make sure there's enough space in between them where they're not on top of each other, and then let them dry. And I don't know how long it would take for it to dry, because usually whenever I would dry my seeds, it's not in direct sunlight either. I would just leave them up there for maybe a week or something, and then put them away. So, but that's the method I've been using. I don't know how everybody else dries their seeds, but that's what I do. What was the other question?
No, it was just somebody made mention. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, okay.
LOL.
Oh, nice. Okay. All right. So that's how you would do that with the spiral cut. And like I said, you can keep it on the counter. Keep it on the counter. Let it spread open just like that. Let it sit like that for a day. And let's say, I want these cuts to be a little bit thinner. If you let this sit on your counter for a day or two, where it becomes really soft and almost squishy like, you can actually take your knife and go in between your cuts, just like that. And you can make thinner slices. So, I mean, you could do that if you wanted to. It's your choice. But a lot of times it will cut like this just for me. And this would be, so this length of cut right here is what it looks like after it dries. Right here. Just like that. And we usually just throw them in a pot of soup whenever we get a pot of soup going. So another thing I wanted to share too, like I said, was talking about my daughter, and my daughter, you know, wanting to do the acorn flower, you know, after talking about it, and she was just saying, just do it. So we did it. We went, and it's I tried to post a lot of our process whenever we do any of the dryings and stuff on my Facebook page. I'm just now creating a YouTube. I've created a YouTube channel. I've just been too shy to upload videos, but I'll be uploading videos here soon too. But this is the acorn flower that my daughter made. And it took us about, I want to say about 5 days to leach it, and then to be able to dry it, and then grind it up into flour. It's a lot of work to be able to do that. So taking off all the shells and then allowing them to soak after you grind them up. And then, you know, making sure that you get all the tannins out of your flour. Tannins are kind of like an acidic taste that are found in the acorn. And I'm trying to figure out, you know, what, if there were any recipes that, you know, called for using acorns the way they were, you know, because of the tannins. And the reason why I say that is because whenever we do the buffalo butcherings, you know, the bile was used with the liver. After they would butcher, they would take the bile and pour it over the liver. And we were trying to figure out why they would do something like that. Because you think about bile, you think about, something really acidic, like why would you want to eat that? But Arlo can tell you his experience with that, because we did a buffalo butchering with a high school student in Crazy Horse and Wobbly. And he tried the bile and liver with Arlo, but we couldn't really tell if he liked it or not because he was just really stoic. So, but a friend of ours told us how they grew up making a dipping sauce out of the bile. So just thinking about that, I thought, I wonder if there were any recipes that said, just use the acorn as is, even though you have the tannins in it, because I feel like the aesthetic or the sour tasting stuff is where it's at, because everybody's all into kombucha now, so, but those are my thoughts on it.
Could you talk to them about the bitter being medicine?
So we talked with Linda Black Elk, my sister, and she was talking about how the bitter, like fruits and things like that, were considered medicine. And I'm just assuming it's probably like the kombucha, because you ferment the kombucha, the SCOBY, I guess, where all the bacteria and stuff are, but that's fermented, and it's supposed to be great for your gut health. So when it comes to like the wild plums, did you get any wild plums? Oh, okay. So like the wild plum, sometimes, people will remove the skin whenever they're drying it because they don't like that bitterness. But what if that bitterness was good for you and it was good for your gut? So we leave the skin on, and I think we've been so used to salt and sugar, things like that, that we forgot that the bitterness in a lot of the fruits and stuff has, really great health benefits for you. So, and these make great snacks too. So, is there anything else? Or
I haven't heard. There's no questions.
Okay. So we did the squash, and then we'll talk about the meat. I'm sorry, I'm eating well. So Arlo was talking about hanging meat earlier, and we went out for our deer last week, I believe, or this past Sunday. This past Sunday. So this is a hindquarter from a white-tailed doe, and this has been hanging in his office by the window. And I took one of these towels just because it's been warm and I don't want the flies to come and feast on our hard work. So I took the towel, wrapped it around, although I really didn't need to do that, just from experience also, because as it hangs, it's going to create this protective layer right here. I don't know if you can see it. So it's like, I guess almost like putting plastic over your meat. But I just put the towel on there just because I didn't trust the flies, and let it hang. So this has been hanging since Sunday, almost a week. So I'm going to probably let it hang one more day and then start cutting into it. What we do with ours is we follow the lines on our meat and cut it into roasts. And the reason why we do that, especially with the hindquarters, because we cut and dry the roasts. So I try to get the roast off in one piece. That way I can thinly cut them and then make, this isn't deer. This one that I have right here, this piece of dried meat is buffalo. So you want to take your roast and then thinly cut them. And we use our same boards that are in our kitchen and dry them. And it takes probably about 4 days, 5 days to completely dry them. And then whenever we hang our meat, we make sure that we have the fat on it also. So whenever I cut this deer, I'm going to make sure that, you know, the pieces that I have that I've thinly cut have meat on it. Because whenever I go to cook this later on, whether it be roasting it over a fire or throwing into soups or making wasna out of it, I want that meat, that fat on there, so it'll flavor my meat, and then it also help make it softer. So that's what we're gonna do with that deer meat whenever we get to it, is to thinly cut it. And there's no salt, no pepper on this meat. And what's pretty interesting about this is that we've forgotten what meat tastes like. We've really forgotten what meat tastes like because we have teriyaki sauce, we have salt, we have pepper. I don't use salt or pepper on my dried meat, although I could. I just choose not to because I use the meat in different recipes. And certain recipes, I don't want salt and pepper on my meat because I'm mixing it with berries, you know? So I want to be able to keep the meat tasting the way it is. And whenever you taste it, whenever you dry it, you can just eat it just like that without cooking it. And it tastes delicious. It really tastes good. So if you have an opportunity to, you know, buy a roast at the store, you know, thinly cut it and throw it over your anything. I've seen laundry, shoe racks, those laundry racks. You know, people would set them out and then hang their meat over it. That works. Clothesline rope, that will work. You know, just as long as they're hanging and keeping an eye on it and just turning it, it will dry. So I really encourage you to give it a shot. You know, go out, get a piece of meat, and dry it without adding anything to it. And when it's dried, take a piece and just try it. The meat is delicious without all of that stuff. That's just personal opinion too. So it's really good. It's really good. And whenever we do have our dried meat, a lot of times when we go camping, we'll take a piece of meat like this so we can roast it over the fire. And when we roast it, it's going to look like this. See the difference in the color? So why do we roast it? This is why we roast it.
Hold on 1 second. You have a question.
Oh, okay.
The question is, when you are slicing to dry it, does it matter if you cut it with the grain or across the grain?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've done it both ways. And for the recipes that I use it for, it doesn't matter. You know, people have been asking me if it was with the grain or against the grain. And against the grain, you would think it would be a lot softer. But even with the grain, because this one right here is with the grain, it seems to be the same for me, because whenever it's drying, it's still breaking down. So it gets a lot softer anyway. And it's the roast, so you don't have too much of the sinewy or the gristle on it. So from my own experience, no difference. Because see, you can't tell right now if it's with or against the grain. And what I'm going to do is I want to be able to make it after I've roasted this. I threw this in the oven at 350 for 7 minutes. And the particular recipe that I need this for, this needs to be almost powdery. So let me see if I can, you see my rock anywhere?
I don't.
I'm sorry about that, guys. Here it is. Okay. So no seasoning, nothing on this meat. I roasted it in the oven at 350. Baked it, I should say, not roasted, but I baked it in the oven at 350 for about 7 minutes. It's going to be different if, and I'll show you after this, if I just do use a fire to roast it to get that crispiness. But that's what I want, is that crispiness. So it's going to get a little loud in here. What I want to do, and I forgot to show you, I'm working with this stone right here, and I'm covering it so that none of this stuff kind of breaks off and goes into my food. Although I don't mind it, you know, others might. So I placed my meat in another towel just like this. And I like the angle on this because it makes a difference from going over something like this and hitting it to just being able to rest my arm and hitting the meat just like that. I don't get as tired. It's more comfortable for me because I'm not like this. So the purpose of a recipe called wasna, or what people, I guess, refer to as pemmican. Some people know it as pemmican. So that's what that is. The purpose of drying our meat is so that we can make wasna at a later time. And everybody has their own version of wasna, and that's great. So if you want to come in closer, so that piece of meat that I had looks like this now. And I could break it up even more, just like that. You see how it's coming across? I don't know if you're familiar with those cans that look like skull, like chewing tobacco. They used to have beef jerky, or they might still have beef jerky in cans like that. That's the kind of texture that you want with your meat. So, and like I said, it's really important that you keep the fat on your meat too, because whenever you bake this, the fat's going to melt. You can save the fat that goes into your pan after you've baked that meat, and then add it to your meat after you've done pounded it. You're done pounding it. Add it to your meat. Holy smokes, that's heaven. That is heaven. Holy smokes, nothing compares to that taste at all. Just like that. And then you would be able to add whatever you want to this. What we add is the dry fruit. So I can take, see these plums? I can take the plums and then shred them up. I can even pound the plums with my rocks if I wanted to. But shred it up just like this. And include it in my meat. So let's say I'm gonna go out and go scouting for some mule deer. Then I can prepare my food before I go out there, because I'm going to be on foot walking for who knows how long. And I might get hungry along the way. So what an easier, I mean, I don't know of an easier food that you can, you know, just carry like this and it lasts forever without refrigeration. And that can't be bought at stores, I guess. But it makes a great snack to replenish your energy, you know, as you're expending it out there, you know, either harvesting plants or out there hunting, whatever the case is. But so I had fat on that meat. If I wanted to add more fat, I can, because fat's really important when it comes to the foods like this, because you have your fruits, your proteins, and your fats. So after you mix it just like that, You can eat it. Great snack. Are we okay on time?
Yep. We got about 40 minutes left.
Okay. So that's that. Does anybody have any questions about the meat before I move on? What I wanted to show you too is the flame, roasting the meat over a flame. Let me grab my torch real quick. So whenever you're doing it with the flame, you don't want to keep it over the flame too long because you'll burn it, and then you would be able to taste the burnt meat. So I have my flame here, and then I take my meat just like this. See if I can show you. So you have the fat right there. And you don't need to put it over the flame for too long. And what we'll do is we'll usually take more fat if we don't have enough fat on here, and add it to the meat and just snack on it just the way it is, just like that. If you want that crispiness, after you roast it, let it sit for about a minute, and then it'll get crispier as you let it sit, as it cools down. Okay. This. So whenever we do butcherings, we try to save as much as everything as we possibly can. So we have the caul fat. We'll take the caul fat. And a long time ago, what they would do with the caul fat is hang it. So they would hang the caul fat up. This is from a buffalo. This is only a piece of it too. But this caul fat right here, after it was taken off, it would be put somewhere to dry. And it will just stay there the whole time. So if you needed it for whatever, for cooking or anything like that, you would just go to your caul fat, take a piece off, cook with it, and just let it hang. I wish I could show you guys the feeling of it. It's really soft, like almost like a blanket, but it can last for a long time. This, along with the meat, was really important every year whenever they would harvest. So we would use a lot of the caul fat. Another thing too is the intestines. So the intestines were washed, not fully washed. So you will still have some of what the buffalo would eat in the intestine. This one in particular is the large intestine. And what was done with this was that it was washed and then turned inside out. So normally whenever you see an intestine, the fat is on the inside, on the outside. And that's what kind of connects everything to the intestines. And then whenever you go to prepare it for drying, you'll take the intestine and wash it somewhat, because you still want to keep stuff in there, and then turn it inside out so that the inside is on the outside, which gets really hard like this. And then almost like a paper sack. That's what it feels like, is a paper sack. And then all the fat is on the inside of the intestine, and that adds flavor to it. So whenever you go to cook your intestine, which, I mean, just depends on how you want to eat your intestine too, or what you have available. You take your intestine and put it over the fire, just like that.
Somebody wants to know if it will melt, if the fat will melt when you're hanging it.
The fat, no, the fat won't melt at all. The fat actually stays intact. So this is the fat right here. And it doesn't melt at all. And again, whenever we dry ours, it's in the kitchen. So it doesn't melt at all. It'll just get hard just like that. So with the intestine, you know, you want to be able to get it crispy enough. So just like that, if you heard it. And they refer to this, the intestine, as their chips from a long time ago. So it was hung so that they could roast it over the fire whenever they wanted something to snack on. So that's what this is. This is the intestine. Okay. Are there any more questions?
No, no more.
No.
No more
Let's see.
questions.
Huh?
No more questions.
Okay. So we have that. Did we already go over the patties?
Not yet.
Okay. So we have the buffalo berries, kind of jumping all over here, so I can't talk about almost everything. But we have the buffalo berries, and I'm not sure if you remember what buffalo berries look like, or if you know what buffalo berries look like, but they're usually the red and yellow berries that you find on plants that are kind of a grayish color. And on the buffalo berry bushes are the, what do you call them? The thorns are sticking out all over on the branches. So you have to be really careful whenever you harvest those buffalo berries. I have buffalo berries too. I'm sorry. I just need to grab one more thing. Okay, so we do a lot of freezing. So whenever we harvest any of our chokecherries or plums, if we don't you know, pound them up and dry them right away, then we freeze them right away. And the reason why we freeze them is because we do a lot of teaching out of our house, our home, or, you know, people nowadays, because of the coronavirus, will ask for, you know, some of this so that they can learn how to do it. So I'll usually, you know, give them a bag of frozen berries so that way they can defrost it and either learn how to cut it. So like these plums in particular were cut from after defrosting frozen plums. And actually the plums weren't really defrosted, they were still frozen. And we cut through them, open them up, remove the pit, put them on the screen there and let them dry. So this is what it looks like when you take frozen plums and dry them. And you're gonna have to take my word on this, but whenever I dry plums right after harvesting them, they still look like this. This taste is still similar. There's really no difference besides, you know, these plums being frozen before I cut them and dried them.
Somebody wants to know where buffalo berries grow.
So buffalo berries are near the water. A lot of times when we find buffalo berries, they'll be near a water source like creeks, lakes, you know, so they stay close to the water. And the color of the berry too is you'll either have yellow berries or red berries, and there's no difference in taste at all. So that's what Buffalo berries. Did you get a shot of this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's usually an indicator too of buffalo berries, is that you'll find a variation of yellow and red.
And so with buffalo berries, they always said to wait until the first frost to be able to get them. But over the years, I've noticed that either the buffalo berries are ready really early. The reason why they say to wait until the first frost is because it sweetens the berry. But, and I don't know if this has anything to do with climate change or what, but the buffalo berries are producing pretty early. And by the time we get to first frost, a lot of them are gone. So they're either shriveled up or the birds got to them or whatever the case is. But usually you won't get enough of the buffalo berries before you can harvest them after the first frost. So my Tuli, Karen White Butterfly, I talked to her about that. And she said that I would be able to get the buffalo berries and just freeze them, before the frost while they're still plump, and juicy, and to see how that goes. And that works actually pretty good. So a lot of times the buffalo berries, when they're not ready, will be super tart. But the older they get, the more towards, the first frost, they get sweeter. So we tried to wait until as long as we can to harvest these, keep an eye on the buffalo berries, but you can freeze them right away. So if you're going to harvest buffalo berries, as you can tell, we don't clean them out. We'll freeze them right away because I still have pieces of the stem and the leaves in them, which is fine. If you want to wash them, you can. It's your choice. It's personal preference, but I don't, mainly because during the summertime we harvest. So we try to get as much as we can and put away as much as we can, so that we have enough for later on, like these times, whenever we're doing demonstrations or we're teaching people how to do something.
What do you do with the buffalo berries?
So the buffalo berries can be eaten just like this. And I have a brother, Richard Gallego. He actually likes eating them just like this. And he referred to them as the native, Lakota fruit roll-ups. So because you can bend them and all that stuff. But the buffalo berries, you can eat them just like this, take them as a snack. Or you can take your meat and your fat and then break them up and then put them in your meat. So, but that's the whole purpose of us drying these, is so that we have them at hand whenever we want to snack on something. And so that's what that's used for.
Do you dry them on the screen too? Yes.
So the buffalo berry compared to the choke cherry, the buffalo berry is going to have more water coming out of the berry because it's really juicy. Oh, that's flour. This is flour, you guys. When we were putting these up, my daughter went and threw flour on them. So it's just flour.
Okay, so different variations again.
Yeah, so the choke cherry, the paste isn't as watery as the buffalo berries would be. So you'll have a really big mess after you pound the buffalo berries, which if you notice, let me grab a different one that doesn't have flour on it. But you're going to notice the seeds and stuff still on the patty, and you're not going to be able to break that seed down. So if you're sitting there grinding, you'll probably be grinding for a while because the seeds are really soft. So you're just going to make them into a paste where you can actually make the patties out of them. And whenever I do the patties, I always think of hamburger patties, how you would make like little tiny hamburger patties. So, and they're not very thick either. And it's dry all the way through. Just like that. Now the choke cherries, we want to keep the pit in the choke cherries because of the medicinal purpose of the pit and how it helps our bodies. So We want to keep the pit, but if you are familiar with choke cherries, the pits are really hard. So what we do is either use the rock and a stone, and they call it gashki, which is to grind the pit. So you want to pop them and grind them as you're making your patties. If we are in a hurry, we'll use a corn mill, and the corn mill actually has 2 plates that have the grooves on it. So whenever it grinds it, it's going to grind a pit really fine. And we've used that too, especially with, you know, our older relatives that can't chew very well. And the choke cherry patty, whenever it's dried all the way, it will look powdery, just like that. And you can add it just like this after you've broken the patty up to your meat and your fat, and it will stay forever. As far as I know, and from stories I've heard, there was really no shelf life on this because they didn't know what the shelf life was, for one thing. Another thing too, you know, it probably wouldn't last that long, but they found some caches along some of the lakes. I mean, not the lakes, the river. And it's just because of the erosion, it exposed these caches that were by the water. And there was these types of foods inside that cache. And somebody tried it and said that it still tasted like, you know, it was just made, but they assumed it was over 100 years. So
There was meat in that too.
and there was meat. There was dried meat in there too. So the buffalo berries, I mean, you could take them just like this if you wanted to break them up. And if you wanted to take them.
When do you pick choke cherries?
Oh, so that's a great question. So whenever you pick the choke cherries, this isn't a really good indicator because they're frozen. But whenever you pick a choke cherry, what you want to do is look at the color, and you want to touch the branch and touch a few berries. And if those berries fall off, then they're ready. A lot of people will use sugar whenever they're preparing any of these foods because these are still tart. And if they're still tart, that means they weren't picked when they were ripe. Because whenever you pick a choke cherry when it's ripe, it's going to be sweet already.
Can you distinguish this from other berries?
Yes. So what you would look for is because I know there's a tree outside that we have in our yard that looks similar to a choke cherry, but you would look for the leaves. So the leaves would be an indicator of what to look for. And if you notice, I don't think you can see it, but on the edge of the leaf are little jagged edges like this. So we usually use the leaf right here as an indicator, like that. My husband actually eats stuff he thinks is something, and so far he hasn't gotten sick, but with the choke cherry, we usually just go based off of that and the little stem, because the stem will be red. The stem on the choke cherry will be red, and then it's going to be a cluster of them like this, and it's going to go down the stem. I wish I had one in here that I could show you.
And then there's another berry out there called chokeberry, and it's very similar, and but it's not the same as choke cherries.
The chokeberry is a lot bigger. They're plumper, and they don't have the pit. So I think it's something they call a superfood or something like that. I don't know about it too much, but we have a friend named Ted Beef and his wife Helen in Iowa, and that get us the chokeberries or aronia berries. They would get us that too. So if we didn't find enough choke cherries, then it would give us chokeberries to use. And the choke berry tastes more like if you've eaten a leaf or grass or something. It just has a different taste to it. It's not like the choke cherry, where the choke cherry is that gets your mouth all dry and gives you cotton mouth. It's not similar to that at all. I mean, it's not like that at all. So, are there any more questions? Okay. So you can, after you've made the patties with the choke cherries, and after you've ground your pits, it's really important that whenever you're grinding choke cherries for drying, that you use your own judgment, because whenever you're pounding, you're putting your fingers in it to make sure that you don't leave huge pits in there. And our preference is to get the pit as fine as possible, because not only do we make wasna with this, or just eat it just like that and see that sweet. This patty right here is really sweet. And that's not adding any sugar or anything to it. It's just from, pounding ripe choke cherries and letting them dry. It's still really sweet. So you can make whatever you want from the choke cherry patties. And one of the things that I do is put choke cherries inside the ground choke cherries inside my yeast dough and make bread out of it, milk bread. So it will have the swirls and stuff like cinnamon rolls, or I don't know if they make them anymore, but like bear claws or something like that, so I will add them to whatever. And it's really best that you be creative whenever you're using these. And when you do get the ripe choke cherries, you'll notice the taste. The taste is different from choke cherries that weren't ready to choke cherries that are ready. And it's that sweetness that really makes the difference too. So you can have these as a snack, because the way it tastes when it's dried, it's almost like it could be a cereal or something. You can make it into a mush or something, like they have blue corn mush, something like that. It's like you could take this, add a little bit of water to it to rehydrate it, and just have your own serving of a mush or something with choke cherries. It's delicious. It is really good. I might just sit here and eat the whole thing up. So we have the buffalo berries, we have the wild plums, the choke cherries.
Somebody asked earlier, you talked about acorn flour. Did you use the stone to grind, and how did you use the acorn flour?
Okay, so with the acorn, after we took the shell off of it, we used the blender. So this is our first time doing the acorn flour. Like I said, we talked about it for years, wanting to do this, and we just were so afraid to make a mistake and do something wrong. But this year, Azure said, just do it. So we did it. And there's a guy on his name is Hank something, and he's a hunter and a gatherer. I mean, that's his style. And he does a step-by-step process of how to make the acorn flour. So what he did was, after you remove all the shells, then I threw it into a blender with some water, and I let it blend up just like that. And it became almost like a meal. And then I poured it into these containers I got at Sam's Club. They're about 8 quarts or something. And then I put some of the acorn in there and then filled up the rest with water. So that way it could allow that to leach. And then that was our process. And we got a recipe from one of our friends on Facebook about onion bread using acorn flour. So that's what we're gonna do with our recipe, with that acorn flour that we have now. We haven't tried it yet, but once I do, then I'll post it on my Facebook account.
How did you remove the tannins from the acorn?
Oh, so I removed the tannins by soaking the acorns in the water, and it took about 5 days. And this is also on my Facebook page too. But I took a picture of the acorn flower as it progressed every day, where it was really dark to where it got lighter and lighter and lighter. So that's how I removed that.
I'm picking up somebody's microphone. Is somebody turn their microphone on? Sounds like somebody's running water.
Okay, so that's the chokecherry patty. So it's not just the squash that we dry the meats, we dry the berries that we collect. And the same thing with the squash. Whenever I want to store any of my dried fruits, I will take a bag just like that. And you can buy these. I got these 10-pack of flour sack towels at Menards. And what you can do if you don't have like the bluebird flower bags like this, and I prefer these too because it gets a lot more airflow through them. You can actually see through the towel a lot easier, but you can sew up the edges just like that. Put your food in there and just keep adding to it as you get your food, because you can prepare more food while these ones are hanging and storing. That way you can build up your patties, your supplies, your patty supply, or whatever you want to call it, and just keep adding to it as you go, and just let it sit somewhere, away from direct sunlight where it's not going to get too hot or moist. You get really good airflow through here, and it keeps for a long time too. So that's how we'll store those. Same with the buffalo berry patties. Same thing with that. Okay. And the plums, same way. So you can use these bags or these towels and sew them up and make your own bags for storage. That works, or freezer bags work too. And we just got a vacuum sealer, so I'm pretty excited about that, but that will work also. So if you wanted to keep it for a long time.
Are the red berries that look like buffalo berries poisonous?
The red berries.
I'm not really sure what that was. Snake berries?
Is it? I would probably have to remember or have to know what exactly.
Yeah, there's a wide variety of berries across the plains and in the Black Hills. I mean, just alone, I can identify at least 3 different types of berries that look like chokecherries, and one of them is very similar. But it's just identification. With the chokecherries, for example, we know that the leaves are jagged, they're very green, the stems are red, there's a pit, and you know what I mean? There's variety of indicators that would set it aside from the other berries.
Are you talking about sumac?
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to see
Okay.
because I have sumac right there. If you want to grab it for me real quick, it's in a baggie. I was thinking of red berry. There's another bag of sumac. So we have skunk brush sumac, which is out now. I mean, we usually harvest this towards maybe fall time. And I'm wondering if this is what you mean, because this is sumac too. This is skunk bush sumac. So it's really oily, and you have to be careful because some people do have a reaction to it. But you can make tea out of this, and the tea is great for your heart. From what I found out, it's almost like detoxifying, but you don't want to boil these in water. What you want to do is make like a sun tea. So you want to take your old pickle jar, whatever you make sun tea in, fill it up with water and throw some of your sumac berries in there, and just let the let it sit out in the sun, and then you can drink it after it changes color. So I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but these are the other red berries that I have, and that's the skunk bush sumac. So I'm not sure if that answered your question or not. So I know with sumac too, other people will use that sumac as like a spice or something whenever they're cooking. So
Do you ever cultivate any of these wild plants yourself?
I've tried to, but so far no luck. I'm not sure if I really want to do that because I really enjoy being out there, being able to go out and walk around and look for these things. It's really fun. It's probably the adult version of Easter egg hunting, I'm thinking. But I thought about it. I've tried it. I mean, no luck so far. I do have some friends who have planted the wild plum and the choke cherries, because I think the choke cherries are pretty common too with people in their gardens. I mean, in their yards and stuff like that. Buffalo berries, I have never seen anybody cultivate buffalo berries. Really interesting. Another plant too is the timsala, which I'll show you right now too. I should have thought of that before, but I didn't. So the timsala is something that we really depend on also. Oh dear, somebody pulled off my bulb. Okay. I'm sorry about that. So I tried to do show and tell a lot. I really have fun doing that. So the timsala, which you can see is hanging on my wall right here, and I have it in other places too. But I'm not a really great braider, so I'll braid it whenever I feel like I can actually accomplish a good braid, but it never turns out well for me. And I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to be eating it anyway, so it's fine. But the timsala is what we harvest during June. So we'll go out and we'll harvest timsala in June time. And the plant will look like this, just like this. So you see all the hair like that. And if I had saved the leaves will be spread out just like this. This is a breadroot. So I have the little stems. You'll recognize the fuzz, and the flowers in the timsala are purple. And you can kind of tell, I mean, it's kind of old too, but this right here is where the flowers would be. And when you want to harvest them when they go to seed. So an indicator that they have gone to seed is that they'll turn yellow. So the flowers won't be purple anymore. They'll be yellow. A lot of times the tops will fall over just like this. But the bulb will look like this. This was a little bit plumper, but because it dried, it got skinnier. And the root will actually be really long sometimes. Just like that. And this is only found in June in some places. In other places, it's found at the beginning of July. So it just depends. You just kind of have to get out there and look for the plants. So, but that's the timsala plant. That's another plant that we go out and harvest. And I've heard people trying to cultivate that plant and it but not being successful. I'm not sure if I really know of anybody who's successfully cultivated timsala or buffalo berries. I do know that wild plum and choke cherries are cultivated. So
You were talking about choke cherries.
About choke cherries?
You were just, I mean, before we asked that question, you were talking about choke cherries.
Okay. So
I think we're just about out of time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're like 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. So I got a lot to share here, a lot to share.
Do you see in groups and leave some plants for further repro? Do you see it in groups and leaves some plants for further repo? That's what it says. Do you see it in groups and leaves and further reproduction? Do you see it in groups and leaves some plants for further reproduction? Oh, okay. Do you leave plants for
Yeah, so this is a thing with well, we'll talk about the Timsala since we have it right here. So like with the Timsala, after it's gone to seed, because it's really important that you harvest it whenever it's gone to seed, that you can either leave this on top or you can bury the plant. That's always been an issue when it comes to harvesting this plant, because everybody has their own way of harvesting it, and you know, it's just been kind of a debate. But so just from, you know, me taking that into consideration, you know, whenever we harvest this plant, we always make sure to leave this. This one didn't get left, or the other one over there, obviously. But we would leave that there up on top, because when it's gone to seed, this is going to actually turn into a tumbleweed. After it dries out, it'll all turn yellow. It's going to break apart. It'll break apart too eventually, maybe before it turns all yellow. And then when the wind blows it, it's going to blow across the oblaya, the prairie, just like that. And it's going to drop seeds all over. So we make sure that we leave that so that the Timsala will come back. Another way is after they dig the hole to get the Timsala bulb out, they'll throw the flower in there and cover it up. And that's just for nitrogen. Okay. But yeah, we try to leave, we don't try to take as much, mainly because we want it to come back. And not only that, but like the birds will be there too after we're done harvesting. So we try to leave what we can for those birds that are migrating also, so that they have something to eat when it comes to like the berries. So it's really important that we don't take everything off of a bush. We'll leave some for the animals too. Are we out of time?
I think we're out of time. People are leaving and people are saying thank you to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I learned so much, and we need to have you back again sometime and learn some more from you. So we'll definitely keep in touch. I really appreciate you being here this morning and getting up early and taking the time to do this. And you too, Arlo. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us. We really appreciate having that ability to share. So as you can tell, I keep things on hand so we can.
Yes, so we will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And everyone, if you want to log off, you can log off, and we have a link in your links for today where you can log back on at about 11:30, 11:45 Central Time, and we'll be doing the prize giveaway and the meat raffle. And so we'll be giving away some prizes at that time, and then move into the last two presentations, and they're both on chickens. So we've got AJ Granelli from Homegrown Pork and Poultry, yeah, and he's going to be processing chickens, showing you how you can do that at home. We also have Stephanie Peterson from Fruit of the Coop, and she's going to talk to you about backyard chicken coops and keeping chickens for eggs. So I hope you can make it back a little while, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.